After a month of no activity, Mother Nature is bringing back severe weather that could produce numerous tornadoes, as well as winter weather that could see almost a foot of snow in some places across portions of North America. When, where, and how impactful this could be will all be answered later on in the video. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Nate. I also go by Hockey Boy and Nate. There hasn't been a whole lot of stuff to cover on this channel, so we've been pretty inactive as of late. However, whenever stuff does impact people's lives, then we do upload videos. So if you do want to stay up to date with all the latest content that I do provide here with weather, please be sure to subscribe and turn on channel notifications, as well as hit that like button down below so we can spread this to more and more people on YouTube's algorithm, essentially helping me spread information to people who could potentially need it. That would be greatly appreciated. And let's get straight into the video here. We got a lot of stuff that's happening across the board in the United States, Canada, and of course Mexico. We've got a big trough that's moving on through here across the East Coast. You can see all these oranges and reds indicating some very heavy thunderstorm activity, with some activity residing over here into Bermuda. But we also have a little bit of residual thunderstorm activity that's over into portions of northeastern Florida as well. And this briefly caused a tornado warning over into northeastern portions as well. But for the most part, this has been relatively inactive in regards to the severe weather department. So nothing really too concerning there. But there is a 1 out of 5 on the severe weather scale indicated in this dark green right in here across portions of Jacksonville and just to the east of Tallahassee as well. If we take a look back over to the northwestern portions of the United States, we have a lot of wind gust reports, with some of which over 90 miles per hour into portions of Montana. That is because there is this massive jet stream that is pushing on through. You can see a lot of the clouds that are moving very rapidly across inland. And this right here is going to start forming our weather event that's going to occur later on into the week, which could, as I said, produce severe weather and winter weather across portions of North America. Now, as I said before, the Storm Prediction Center has issued a 1 out of 5 on the severe weather scale indicated in this dark green, but if you're in the light green, it's just a general thunderstorm risk, so it's not saying that you won't have severe weather, but it's very unlikely to have some within that general area. But there is a little chance for severe weather, 2% chance for tornadoes, and a 5% chance for wind within a 25-mile radius, but nothing for hail, so not really anything too concerning with that. Taking a look at the day 2 convective outlook, we have 2 general thunderstorm risks here indicated in this light green, one in the deep south, the other into portions of the northwest. But as I said, that is not really a huge risk for severe weather, so not really too much of a concern there for people in those areas. Now, what is the concern here is this day 3 convective outlook, which is for Friday, December 10th. You can see we have a giant 1 out of 5 on the severe weather scale indicated in this dark green, and then a 2 out of 5 on the severe weather scale indicated in this yellow. That is a slight risk. And so areas in that general vicinity here along the Mississippi and Ohio River Valley definitely need to watch out for some strong severe weather. There could potentially be a 3 out of 5 on the severe weather scale added with this as well. And if I were to place it somewhere, it would have to be into portions of Arkansas, Louisiana, and Mississippi. Somewhere right within that general area, there could potentially be a 3 out of 5 on the severe weather scale. So if you're in Memphis, Nashville, Louisville, Shreveport, Little Rock, anywhere near those areas, highly recommend watching out for severe weather on Friday. Of course, I will be live streaming on Friday as well, so if you guys want to tune into that while I cover all of the thunderstorms live, I tell you where all the potential tornadoes could be and where they could be heading off towards, please be sure to tune into my live stream on Friday. I do not have a defined time for you guys at the moment, but I will have that answer for you all in tomorrow's video, so please be sure to stay tuned to the channel. All right, so now we're going to take a look at the weather models, or we're going to use 2 models for our presentation here today. We're going to be using the North American model, the 3-kilometer version, and then we're going to be using the Euro model, basically because there could potentially be the chance to where severe weather could extend from Friday into Saturday into portions of eastern United States. So we're going to want to use the Euro model, which actually looks a little bit further out than the NAM 3-kilometer model, to help us get a general idea as to where the severe weather could be, as well as the potential impacts of it. So let's get into the simulated radar. Of course, the time is above me in Eastern Daylight Time, so if you're in Central, I apologize. You're just going to have to subtract from 1 hour. But take a look here at the simulated radar here from the North American model. you can see that early Thursday into the midday stages of Thursday, you can see that there's a lot of snow and freezing rain across portions of Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, as well as portions of the Great Lakes. That is the first storm that'll move on through, but that is not the main storm, all right? It's going to be a separate storm that's going to move on through, and you can see there's a lot of snow that's starting to be generated from the second storm, which is over in the Rockies. And you'll see as this plays on through here on Friday, you get a lot of snow in the morning across portions of South Dakota, Nebraska, Wyoming. This will continue to move on about with some freezing rain and sleet possible across portions of Nebraska and Iowa, as well as Minnesota and Wisconsin. But then as this continues to formulate here, we're in the afternoon stages of Friday. You guys can see a lot of these little popcorn cells that move about across portions of Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi, Tennessee, Alabama. And this is the stuff to watch out for, because if there is anything organized that can form along that area, then there could potentially be some strong, severe weather that could move about with the potential for tornadoes. The environment is ripe enough for there to potentially be some activity as well. And there could even be some activity as this continues to move on through overnight as well. So I'd watch out for that general vicinity. I'd also watch out for this lagging cold front behind this, because this could potentially create some strong damaging winds even past the original storms. And that is definitely something that we all need to watch out for as this continues to move off closer and closer towards Friday. Of course, I'll have a better answer for you guys as to where these showers and thunderstorms could be as we get closer and closer to the event, because the models aren't exactly perfect the further and further away from a specific day you are. So we're just going to have to watch out for this as this continues to play out. But for right now, the general area to watch is areas along the Mississippi River into places of Arkansas, Louisiana, and Mississippi. Now, that's not saying that some areas up here in Illinois, Kentucky, Tennessee, and even Indiana can't get into some of the action. But that just means for right now that the main area to watch is going to be Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, and maybe portions of Tennessee near Memphis. So now we're going to take a look at the big picture here with all the different parameters that go into forecasting all of this. And we're going to start by taking a look at the 500 millibar wind shear, which is about 6 kilometers above ground level. You can see that there is our very strong dip in the jet stream here, our trough that is ejecting through into portions of the East Coast. That's what's creating all of our strong showers and thunderstorms into portions of the East Coast and Bermuda. You can also see that we also have our very strong jet stream that's moving inland over here across portions of the Northwest, creating those strong wind gusts up there and upwards of 90 miles per hour into portions of Montana. So you can tell that this is relatively accurate because it's lining up with what exactly we just saw on satellite imagery. So if we move this along here, you can see that we have one storm that moves on through on Thursday, and that's the snowstorm that I was talking about earlier on. You can see that there's a lot of wind shear that ejects through here into portions of the central United States, but this isn't the main storm to watch out for. This big dip in the jet stream right here, this giant trough, is going to create our new low pressure system with a lot of very strong wind shear. And watch this. You guys can see a lot of these greens with a couple of oranges here. If you take a look at the bottom part of your screen, you can see the scale there, which indicates how fast the winds are in knots. And you can see as this continues to move about, we get a lot more reds, get some browns, and now this is when things really start to fire off, where we get whites and even almost burgundy in some areas here as we transition from Friday into Saturday. And what this is essentially going to do is it's going to create a lot of winter weather here north of this and a lot of severe weather here across portions of the eastern and southern portions of this. And this is going to be something that we're going to have to watch out for, because how quickly this does change from not as much wind shear to a lot of wind shear is going to be the determining factor as to what type of impacts we could potentially be seeing from Friday into Saturday. So now we're going to transfer from the 500 millibar wind shear to the 850 millibar wind shear, which is about 1 kilometer above ground level, so a little bit closer to the ground here. And you can see here on Thursday night into Friday morning, we get some levels of wind shear here that is in upwards of 30 to 40 knots, but it's not completely widespread, although you do have some residual effects from the previous snowstorm that I talked about for the Thursday event up here in Minnesota. But watch this, guys. Take a look at how this now ejects through here from Friday morning into Saturday. And look at this massive widespread event here with a lot of dark reds and even browns in some areas. This is going to attribute to a lot of wind shear here in the lower levels. And what this is going to do is this is either going to A, bring a lot of moisture here from the Gulf of Mexico, and it's going to advect further north. And B, it's going to create a bit of veering in the atmosphere to where you can have environments capable of creating supercells, which supercells then can produce tornadoes. So we're going to want to watch out for how this low-level jet continues to eject on through. But from the models here, it looks like the low-level jet is going to be significant enough to where we could get supercells that could in turn produce tornadoes. And even as this continues all the way through into the evening and overnight hours on Friday, you can see that low-level jet starts to increase and it starts to uptick more and more across portions of the Ohio River Valley. And this could create a lot of strong damaging winds across the board as well. So now we're going to translate to the dew points here. And what this is going to tell us is it's going to tell us that moisture content that I was talking about that's going to move into portions of the United States from the 850 millibar wind shear. So anywhere that's in the yellow or orange is practically favorable for severe weather, which is about 60-degree dew points or above. So watch this here. From Wednesday night into Thursday, you can see dew points across the board in about the 30s to almost 40s in some spots. But as this continues to move on through, this is Thursday, you can see the moisture is starting to move on through. We call this moisture return because moisture is returning to the area. And you can see a lot of moisture that's starting to set up across the board into portions of Louisiana, Arkansas, and Mississippi. But this is on Thursday night. Now we're going to translate to Friday night here and take a look. A lot more moisture starts to set in here. You can see it reaches into portions of the Ohio River Valley and the Mississippi River Valley. And this is going to create a widespread area for severe weather here into this general vicinity, and that's the reason why the Storm Prediction Center has issued a 2 out of 5 on the severe weather scale in most of these areas. But then after that, once storms do start to form, take a look here towards the left side of all the dew points on the western edge here. As this starts to form, then a line starts to push on through, and you can see a lot of dry air that starts to seep in behind this. And this is our cold front that's going to march on through and create a lot of strong damaging winds along this line. So as this continues to form and move about, this massive line continues to push on through into the early morning hours and even into the afternoon hours, creating some potential severe weather across some of these areas here in the Appalachians, maybe even into the Carolinas and the Mid-Atlantic as well. And that's something that we're going to have to watch out for sure as this event does translate later on. So now we're going to translate to one of the main things that I like to look at when we look for severe weather, and it's the energy levels, the convective available potential energy, or CAPE for short. What that basically does is it basically looks at the difference between the warm air rising in the atmosphere and the cold air sinking. So the displacement between the two is the energy level in the atmosphere, or the CAPE. You have more CAPE, you have more energy for thunderstorms to form or sustain, and therefore you can potentially get supercells. So let's take a look at the energy levels here from Thursday night into Friday and even into Friday night, so we can determine as to how much energy there is for these thunderstorms to either form or sustain. Now, you want about 1,600 joules per kilogram or above around this time of year. Typically, you would want 2,000 joules per kilogram to be safe, but in this instance, we're going to try and see if there is even just that general greenish, yellowish area to where there could potentially be enough energy for thunderstorms to form or sustain. So let's move on through and let's take a look and see. You can see the CAPE levels that are starting to spread throughout much of Arkansas, Mississippi, and Tennessee as we continue to move along. That's because of that 850 millibar wind shear that's bringing that moisture into these portions of the United States. And you can see here, once we get into the late evening hours of Friday, we do have some areas of CAPE that do have this greenish yellowish area to where there could potentially be some severe weather that could potentially produce supercells. Now, I know we have some lower amounts of CAPE into other portions of the Mississippi River, but I would not be surprised if we had some of these weaker storms that could produce brief tornadoes along those little mini thunderstorms in some of these weaker Cape environments. And that's just because of how strong the wind shear is, with the 500 millibar wind shear being as great as it is, the 850 millibar wind shear being as great as it is, and the dew points being high enough for it to be able to sustain. So I would not be surprised if we had some tornadoes that could be outside of the general realm of the high amounts of Cape for this environment. So definitely something to watch out for as this continues to progress on through. But otherwise, we do have energy that could reside within some of these areas, and even into the overnight hours, you can see Cape does expand further and further into portions of central Indiana and even portions of Illinois. And that's kind of the reason why I said that there could potentially be some other areas that's not just Arkansas, Mississippi, and Louisiana, and even Tennessee. You can see some areas over here into Kentucky, southern portions of Indiana and Illinois that could potentially be in the risk as well. So definitely something to watch out for. But depending upon how much energy is used here now in that event can determine as to what happens on Saturday. And we'll have to talk about that a little bit more in depth tomorrow. But for right now, Friday seems to be the event to watch out for more than anything. But for right now, we can do something to look at both Friday and Saturday to see where the severe weather could potentially lie. And we can look at that by looking at the instantaneous flash rate, which basically looks at how many lightning strikes can happen within a specific time period. Now, I've set it to a 6-hour average so that it'd be easier to determine as to what exactly is happening. And if we play this through here, you can see on Friday night into Saturday, we have a lot of lightning strikes that occur here across portions of Arkansas, which is exactly what we were talking about earlier. But then as this moves on through into the overnight hours, look at how expansive this actually is. It goes in from eastern Texas all the way up into Illinois, Indiana, and even portions of Ohio as well. So it just really depends upon how this event portrays itself and how much energy it uses to begin with in order for us to determine as to what happens on Saturday, because you can see here later on into the afternoon and even into the evening hours, we don't have a lot of lightning, but we have some. And because we don't have a whole lot of energy with this, there isn't as much thunderstorm activity in this general area. So we're just going to have to watch out for where these thunderstorms end up forming and how much energy is in these specific areas for us to determine as to whether or not there could potentially be a threat. But me personally, I think there could potentially be some severe weather that could occur somewhere into portions of the Western Carolinas, as well as into portions of Georgia and maybe even Alabama as well. And then there could be some residual activity that is north of that, but I think the main activity could be where I just circled. So now let's take a look at the potential snowfall totals. Of course, I will admit that these numbers are a bit overdone. I think that some areas could potentially see lower amounts of snow, but it's always better to overpredict than underpredict to keep people safe than sorry. So in this instance, you can see that there is a plethora amount of snow across portions here of Minnesota, Nebraska, Dakotas, all the way into Iowa, Great Lakes, and even in portions of Ontario and Quebec. So if you guys live within those general vicinities, I highly would watch out for some snow within your general vicinity. But if you're in Canada, you're pretty used to it at this point. So not really anything too surprising there for you all. But some of these areas here in Minnesota, Iowa, and Wisconsin, you could potentially see some snowfall totals in upwards of a foot. It could be definitely less than that, though. I would not be surprised if it was actually less than that in some areas. So if you do have snow that's not as high as what you see here on this map, don't freak out. Don't think that I'm wrong completely, because I do agree that it could potentially be less than what it actually says here. But it could easily be more than what it says here as well, depending upon what all happens within the next few days. And that's all I have for you all today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in the video. If you did enjoy it, please be sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're new, turn on notifications, share this with friends and family. I really do appreciate you guys coming out to my channel. We have over 18,000 subscribers. If you were to ask me at the beginning of last year that we would get up to 18,000 subscribers, or if we would even think about getting to that high, the answer is quite simple. No, I probably would have thought that we would get up to at least 5,000 subscribers, but not 18. So it would have been able to do this stuff without you all. And thank you guys so much for helping me out here today. I will see you guys tomorrow when we talk a little bit more in depth about Friday's event. So peace out, everyone.